So, because if we start at the individual, this is where it all starts. And there's, like I said, this is very mutative energy. And so it's going to be really focused on its own process, what it does. And it doesn't really try to influence other people. It just naturally does. It's like it creates a opening almost for something new to come through that the others will then find use for. Human Design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, Human Design Specialist.
And I'm Haley, the Human Design Newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive Podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hello, Haley. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good.
Good. I just had a thought as I said that. I was wondering, going back all the different episodes of how many times I've said hello. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, it just reminded me in that moment of when my mom used to wake us up in the morning when we were kids. Mm-hmm. She would slam the door open and turn the lights on and be like, rise and shine, morning glory, all these weird things. And I was like, oh, stop it. But so it just made me think, she always said the same thing. I'm like, I wonder if I'm always saying the same thing and it comes off the same way every time I say it. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, shows you're consistent.
Well, my gate 5 does like that consistency for sure. For sure.
Yes.
But anyway, so just before we hopped on here, I was talking about for today's episode, I had a few graphics to show her that won't necessarily show up on the screen recording, but when I put the YouTube video together, I've been having fun creating the videos and I've been able to figure out how to make the graphics pop up on the screen while we're talking about it, so that if if you're listening to this just as an audio podcast, know that all these newer episodes are video podcasts. And so I'm trying to have a little bit more graphics in there to kind of explain what we're talking about, which we're going to do today. And so I told her that, you should go look at YouTube now and then, and you might be impressed with what I've been doing. I don't know. I got to cobble it all together. And she said, what?
I said, I don't really go on YouTube at all.
And I about lost it because I'm on YouTube every day. And not just because I'm putting videos, I'm learning. And I said, you damn line 2. That is your line 2. Why do I need to go on YouTube? I know how to do things. Which is funny, though, because one of my highest viewed videos on YouTube is about the 2-5 profile. But the poor 2-5 is probably just trying to figure out, what am I good at? What are they going to call me out for? Yeah, there has been a lot on there, but yeah, what a stark difference between now. I have another friend who's a line 2 that she does like YouTube, but she won't spend like 12 hours watching YouTube videos like I could trying to learn one thing. I mean, it's my go-to, but also it's why I've decided to, put a lot of this stuff on YouTube, because I'm always looking on YouTube for stuff. So other people might be looking. So maybe we can find every little corner of YouTube over there. I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast today.
I don't think so.
I've had this excited energy all day, and it's really, there's lots of factors. I do know that overnight into today, the sun moved into gate 14, which is my sun gate, which means my birthday's coming up, which it is on Monday. But also a really big opportunity came to me yesterday that, interestingly enough, showed up when it rolled into gate 14. And so I've just had a lot of things going on today and trying to get this together and work at my other job and then my side project that's going on and making sure I have the right graphics. I'm just like, I am on full tilt today. And the kids just asked me a little bit ago if I wanted something from the boba shop a tea, and I was like, yeah, I really don't think I need a tea. I think it's 4:30, jacked up as it is on a natural high. But bring it up because, wow, this is what a lit up sacral feels like. It's like I am using my energy to where it wants to go for sure. So I'll probably crash and burn later on tonight when I go to bed. That'll be okay.
Hey, but that's how it's supposed to be.
That's a good use of that energy. That's right. And so, are you curious what we're going to talk about today?
I am. I want to know. Tell me.
Well, I like to go back and look and see what we've talked about. And I realized it was a very, 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 very long time ago in the very beginning stages of this podcast. We talked about circuitry, and it's not a very, I don't know why, it's not been one of the more popular episodes. And I think it's a shame because I find it so enlightening to learn about circuitry. And
we mention it all the time. We
do. And so that's why I'm curious why it. So I thought, okay, well, we do have different circuits in the human design system of how our energy flows. And I thought, well, I'm realizing maybe some of the earlier episodes I fire hosed a little bit of information. I don't know. So I thought I'd take it slow, take it easy on everybody, and break it up into a couple different episodes of what circuitry is all about. Which, I mean, as I'm looking at it, I always learn something new. When I break it apart like this too in different sections, I always patterns start to show up that I hadn't seen before or even just thought about. I love it. And so this one, kind of as I was putting this episode together, it was interesting that we've done the quarters, the episodes on the quarters and what the themes are there, and where some of these circuits show up within the year, the quarters and everything. So anyways, so what do you understand circuitry to be? Just curious.
So I know that it's, I mean, if you think about just circuit in general, it's a loop of energy. So in the human design, they are these loops of energy, but they flow through different gates, obviously, but depending on like what the gate is, it'll be a different type of energy, like a different aspect, I guess you could say.
Different theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
that's the
true.
word.
Yes, that's true. And so, looking at the body graph, it's a map really of your energetic makeup. So it is a map of how your energy flows, right?
Right.
Supposedly. Supposedly, she says. What I mean by that is, I mean, not everybody has centers defined, but if you don't, that would make you a reflector. But other than that, mainly 99% of us do have some kind of energy flow of centers connecting, which is part of these different circuits within the human design system. But also, it's considered, even if you don't have a full channel, if you have gates in certain circuitry, that's considered having something in that circuitry. So you did a nice job of saying, it is like the energy flow. There is the analogy in human design a lot that it's like the wiring in your house. It's just like it's there, it's present, and it has a purpose, and it is interesting to know about. So there's basically 3 types of circuits. And you'll also be familiar with hearing it because it's what we talk about when we're talking about the emotional waves too. So what are they?
There is tribal circuitry, there is collective circuitry, and individual circuitry.
And I'm so curious now. I want to look this up because I think it's interesting the way you just listed all those.
Well, I know that mine is, I believe that's also the order that my circuitry is.
That's what I was going to say.
I am pretty positive that my circuitry is highest in tribal.
I think it's in collective. But we're going to look right now and see. Okay. So let's see your circuitry. Yes, you are. You are largely collective circuitry. You have So collective circuitry consists of sensing circuit and understanding or logic circuit. And between those two circuits, it's 46% of your design. That is 13 gates. And then tribal's big too. Yeah. You have a lot, 6 gates there. And you've got a nice mix, but most of yours, the one that is the most where you have gates, is the understanding circuit, which is collective circuitry, logic circuitry. We know that. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of logical circuitry. But we're going to focus today on, we'll get there. So you'll have to hang in. And so it's funny that you listed them, because I always go individual, tribal, collective. And that is how it shows up in my chart, because we all have a mix of all of this circuitry. We all do. Mm-hmm. Even if we don't have channels, you're going to have gates that are in these circuits. But I also look at it individual, tribal, collective, because of what those different energies and circuitries, what they
kind of the expanse govern. Of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the individual out to the collective. So I look at that. But yeah, so my design is largely individual, which I know if you've listened to a couple episodes, everybody should know this by now, because the generator loves to talk about herself. But I think I looked at, yes, I have 11 gates, so like 38% of my circuitry is in individual circuits.
Isn't Presley's like weirdly high in individual?
I think he's the highest. I know between your dad and Presley, they are like some of the most individual people I personally know. So I think Presley wins this one. We're not surprised, right? Presley's 60. Presley is 60. Okay, wait. 60% individual. He has 16 gates in the knowing circuit and 1 in the integration network, which we're getting ahead of ourselves here, because I haven't just explained what all these are. We're going to say it's even more than that. It's actually closer to like 65% of his design is individual. Okay. But we're going to talk about, so what is individual circuitry? So let's talk about circuitry in general. So if we're talking about how the energy flows and the themes, if you're thinking about how these all work together. So in our societies, I guess the smallest unit would be the individual, right? That's each and every one of us individually. We're witnessing right now me trying to get on track of what I want to say as I'm speaking. Okay. So then this is the analogy that I was taught from one of my teachers, is how these circuitries work together and the purpose of all of them. So individual circuitry is a lot about, obviously, the individual, but it's a very like in your own process kind of thing. It's individuality, it's empowerment, it's mutative energy. It's meant to just kind of bring in new things. That's the mutation. And so this is Karen Curry Parker's analogy. She'll say there's like 2 brothers, Bob and Tom, you know, and say Tom has a lot of individual circuitry, and he's the guy that lives by himself down by the river, maybe not in a van, but you know, he's the guy that always wanted to do things on his own. He decided to strike out on his own. He didn't really like being in the tribe, so he just decided, you know what, I don't really like this. I'm going to do my own thing. You know, guys bother me too much. I don't want to follow your rules. I don't, you know, really care that much about what else is happening. I just got to do my own thing. And so he breaks off and he lives by himself, and he fends for himself. He makes his, you know, own tools. He grows his own food. He does his own hunting. He's happy. He's self-sufficient. He's very individual. Every now and then his brother Tom comes to check on him, because Tom has a lot of tribal circuitry. Who's who? Which one did I start
Tom is individual.
Okay. If Bob you say so.
Okay. The brother.
Tom is the individual. Bob comes to check on his brother on the regular, see how he's doing, make sure he's okay. You know, even though he wants to live by himself, Bob is tribal, so he's going to be more concerned about how he's doing. So he goes to check in on him, and he sees he's fine. But then he notices, maybe his brother made this really cool new tool to, I don't know,
break rocks.
I was going to say open walnuts.
Kind of the same thing. Same action.
And he's like, wow, this is really cool. Where'd you get the idea for this? He's like, I don't know. I just, I needed it. I made it. It works. And he's like, well, I think I could use something like this too. Can I take it with me? Do you mind? And he's like, I'll make another one. No problem. So he takes his tool that his brother, the individual, made and takes it back to the tribe. The tribe finds a lot of use out of it too. It makes it a lot easier for them to do their things. We haven't decided what the tool is. Some kind of hammer, some kind of thing that breaks things open easily. And the tribe finds a lot of value out of it as well. And they start using it and they share it amongst, the families in their small tribe. And so everybody gets one, but they start, finding value in it. So they start making their own. One day, one of the tribe's people, maybe it's Bob. He's the one that goes out to trade with other tribes, trade with other people. He goes out with them, and he has that tool with him because it comes in handy, especially on the road. You got to break things open. You never know.
Obviously.
I'm laughing at myself. This stupid analogy. So it gets the point across. So as he gathers with the other leaders of other tribes and they share what they have back and forth, and they're like, whoa, what is that? And he's like, oh, we all have one of these. You like it? It's cool. We can make you some. So they're like, yes, we would like to have some of those. And so then that tribe can then start contributing to the collective by now they're going to trade these tools with the collective, and then everybody benefits. And then, we leaps and bounds in our evolution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's a very simple analogy, but it kind of encapsulates what happens.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because, because if we start at the individual, this is where it all starts. And there's, like I said, this is very mutative energy. And so it's going to be really focused on its own process, what it does. And it doesn't really try to influence other people. It just naturally does. It's like it creates a opening almost for something new to come through that the others will then find use for, right? So like the individual doesn't necessarily always create for others. It's always, usually for themselves, but it ends up benefiting others. So there is a lot of creativity. So this individual energy eventually empowers the collective and helps change the collective. And so one thing they talk about a lot in individual circuitry, which I'm getting to have a better understanding of, because when I first got my initial human design report, I don't know how many years ago, it talked a lot about melancholy. And I know we've mentioned melancholy before. And I never quite understood what that meant. It just felt like, oh, it's sad, right? So melancholy is. But I've been listening to different people and studying different things, and through my own experience, noticing that it's a little bit more than just, it's not just sad. It's kind of like the doldrums. It's like, what do they call it? Is that the doldrums when there's no wind, when you're out on the ocean? That's the doldrums,
I think
right?
so.
Yeah. It's like that. It's like there's just, it's
Nothing's
not
moving.
happening. That stuckness feeling that also generators, can experience, this like nothing's happening, because this creative flow is a lot of times unpredictable, and it kind of moves. It's moody. It's the wave in the emotional solar plexus that's very moody. It kind of can get in, because in the individual circuitry the emotional wave, the individual wave is very moody. It is the 3955, the 1222 going from the root solar plexus throat. That's the emotional wave there of the individual. Sorry, the individual wave there through the emotional solar plexus.
Is that your wave?
No. I mean, I have gate 55, but the channel that I have that creates my emotional definition is the 59.6 from the solar plexus to the.
So is that how it's going to determine what your wave is where your center definition comes from?
Yes. What it is that creates definition in your solar plexus is what your wave is. And so mine, the 59.6 is a tribal wave.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I wouldn't say you're very moody.
No, I'm not totally moody. I do have 55 a couple times in my chart, but like I said, it's not, that's not my wave. It's not my wave, man. But it is interesting that I have all the individuality circuitry, but my wave, my tribal wave, my emotional solar plexus is
not individual.
Behaving differently. Let's just say. Okay. Melancholy. So melancholy. Okay. So when we talk about that emotional wave for the individual and the moodiness, the melancholy, that's attached to it as well. Is that wave, that emotional wave, I keep saying emotional, that wave, the individual there through the emotional solar plexus, the moodiness is tied to this melancholy in the sense that it says through that circuitry, you should not create if you don't feel like, talk if you don't feel like, bond if you don't feel like it. Like it's all very tied to mood. What you're creating is tied to mood. Mm-hmm. And also what the individual creates in general is tied to mood, but also timing, a lot of it. But really they say that this melancholy is a space where the individual creative process begins because it's kind of a inward focus going in and mulling over, feeling into that kind of thing of what it is that is wanting to come out. But it can feel really gross sometimes, like icky and like literally nothing is happening. And I'm starting to explore that to see if, on top of being a generator and feeling stuck and frustrated, even though I don't have that emotional wave through the individual circuitry, I have so much individual circuitry that it's possible that I definitely have that doldrum feeling where it's just like, not only is nothing happening, I don't even know what I want to happen. I just like lose all interest in possible things I had been interested in. And it just goes somewhere else, or I just feel like doing
just
something
kind of fizzle out.
I get up to here with things sometimes of what I'm interested in, and then it just kind of, and it's gone. And it's like, oh, well, maybe that was the wrong thing. What am I doing? And that's why I always be like, well, now that I look at it, human design, I'm like, well, I'm not a manifesting generator, but I am very individual. So maybe it's just kind of finding that melancholy, that doldrum right there. But it's all part of the process. So really, the individual circuitry consists of 2 sub-circuits. Okay. And then there's something they call the integration network.
Okay.
And there is a reason, I guess, for this. I guess.
So is the integration, and we've talked about it before, is it parts of all of the other circuits?
Yes, this is where I'm going to, I guess, show you. This is why we wanted to record on Squadcast. I thought it would be better when I was showing you my graphics. And like we said, in post-production, I could do all this cool stuff, but not happening. So
not today.
I hope I can show these windows too. Let me see. Share screen. I think. Okay. All right, here we go. Now you'll be able to see it.
I see a screen.
There you go. Yes. So I'm just showing you one thing right now. Except for we've now switched on the. There we go. That's better for me. Sorry. Okay. So you were asking about the individual circuitry, what it looks like. So this is the full circuitry here. It consists of the knowing circuit, which would be this that you see in the turquoise teal color. And then the centering circuit, which is this darker purple here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because those are the actual circuits. And then there's going to be something else called the
integration.
Integration. Right. So this is all of that. So the integration channels, you can see here, there's this overlapping of what we said was the circuitry, the individual circuitry, which the whole circuitry here, the whole circuitry group, right?
So the integration channels are they're only overlapping with the individual circuitry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they are different. They're part of the circuitry, but they're not their own actual different circuit. They're like channels that kind of fuel the process of our individuality in our species, right?
Mm-hmm.
Distinguishing oneself from another, which you'll see. I don't have the gates on here because I know what they are, but this one going to the sacral right here is gate 34. And we always talk about how 34, and you can see how 34 here in the integration network is doing that connecting to all those centers, right? And gate 34 is that it's the gate of power, but it's the gate of individual power. And so it is the one gate they say that's in the sacral, because the sacral is all about life force, workforce, sexual energy, all this stuff. This gate is asexual. It's not interested in mating. It's not interested in nurturing others. It's interested in what it wants. It is your own personal power.
Right.
And this is what, like I said, fuels us as individuals within our... Did you have a question? Or you're just yawning?
I was trying not to yawn. Inhaling, trying not to yawn.
I get it. Okay. So you'll see how the 34 connects to the 57. So gate 34 is connecting to the intuition, the power, like in the now. That is the channel there is power. They're going to be the channel of charisma, which is the 3420. Oh, I should go by these. It's going to be... This is what's happened to me today. I'm like, sorry. It's going to be right here, 1020. It's going to be the channel of awakening, 10 to 20 right here. This channel here. It's going to be the 2034, which we know is the manifesting generator channel. It's going to be the 5734, like we said, and then it's going to be the 57 connecting here. So
the 5710.
Yeah, 5710. Did I say that?
No, you just said 57 connecting here.
Sure. And so, what do we know about these, this channel of awakening, this 20 to the 10? This is the G center. This is the love of self. It is in the now. It's, what does the self, want to express in the now? What is the charisma? That was the individual's power, the sacral power in the now, right? Acting in your own interest. The 5710, the perfected form, is about the intuition of knowing what's best for you. The perfected form. It's the love of self, your intuition informing what is best for you. And did I get all of them? I think
5734.
Well, we just talked about that a minute ago, about is the individual's survival power, basically. Like, the more I learn about that channel and, having it in my design, I think is what has kind of helped it's almost like spidey senses. I feel like, it's like knowing when to act. It always keeps me safe. I feel like the 3457 does have like the beacon that is always like watching, listening, and it gives me the power to know when to act, to know what to do, and not just like in dangerous situations, but I think that's also like when I've been thrown into stressful situations, or when someone needs to step up or somebody needs to do something, take control. Like, I think that's that gate there that just knows what to do and doesn't have to think about it. It just does it. And I think that's where that comes from, at least for me.
Interesting.
It's a gate of power. So these channels,
channel of power.
Yes. What did I say?
Gate.
I thought it. Well, it's both. I mean, 34 is power. The channel there, the 3457, is also power.
Oh, lovely.
There's some overlapping. But so the integration network here is about self-preservation. As you can see, it is entirely focused on the self and empowering the individual nature, expression, knowingness, direction, all of that stuff. It's the survival, the drive to be unique and differentiate yourself from others. And this is important because the individual, like, differentiation, but also survival, helps ensure the also survival. As we said, it ripples out the tribal and the collective, because if the individual knows what to do, it kind of like spreads out in a And so it's interesting, the word integration here and integration channels. Like, what, when you think about integration, because we talk about it a lot, about the hermit, has to find their own process. There has to be an integration in ways, of learning something, but then you have to integrate it, right? You have to like bring it in. And so what do you think that really requires if you integrate something? What does that process look like?
I feel like it would be very like, you kind of have to mull on it and like work with it, see how it works for yourself, and then just kind of like start embracing it and working through it and kind of experimenting with it.
Yeah. And I think that's why these are called the integration. It's very individual, but integration does take time. Usually, that's how you described it. It doesn't happen, it's a process, necessarily overnight. And so even though there's a lot of this energy of the self-preservation and, being highly individual, you can see also that theme of melancholy can also run through some of these energies as well, because it's that time. It takes time. It takes more time to do things, to learn them and absorb them, so that the individual can then affect the tribe. So it's like saying, like, maybe an example of how that would work would be, maybe if you grew up in a household that was rather chaotic, or there was some form, I hate to always fall back on abuse because it's not always like that drastic, but say, you were taught a more toxic way of interacting with those around you. Say there was, you growing up in a household, people weren't exactly in touch with their emotions or who they are, which is pretty much every generation before yours.
Yeah.
That people weren't really delving into their own issues and how they affect the rest. But, I can give my own example. I didn't grow up in a toxic household, but I certainly grew up in a household. My parents did divorce when I was about 12, but it was not a very demonstrative household, in the sense that didn't see a lot of like affection. My mom was affectionate with me. My dad, okay, but I didn't see a lot of like really in our immediate little nuclear family. I think it was kind of just quiet. I didn't see it, and as I grew up, that made me I felt more reserved, and I guess probably on top of that, all the individual circuitry felt rather removed and reserved and kind of closed off and, from other people. But then as I went on my own exploratory process of who I am as I got older and everything, I learned about myself, and learned to, I grew up, I would be somebody who held grudges a lot. I took things very personally. I was, very much someone who burn that bridge and don't want to look back. I mean, I even had the time with my own father where we didn't speak for years and years. It was very much this just not very emotionally, let's say, mature kind of environment. But I, as the individual, didn't try to change anybody else. I saw it was futile. I'm not having that. Wasn't really interested, honestly. It was just like, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to me? What can I do about it? How can I control it? And so that's how I went about it. I was just always, curious about me as the individual. And as that grew, I was the one that transformed, that has helped create this mutation, I think, in the family or just in people around me, of being a different kind of person than I used to be. Right. I'm a much different person than I was than when I was your age, and I never asked anybody to come along. I never expected anybody to. It was just very much my own process, but it created a ripple effect in our family. And then it then creates a whole different environment for you to grow up in. There has been this mutation through me that kind of broke chains from how my family's lineage had been up until this point. Does that make sense? Because everybody was just always kind of doing, they never really were breaking that chain, but that's what an individual does. So that's the first part of it. So let's go on. Let's just get rid of that, and let's just go
to the first part of it.
That's what I'm saying. Sort of. In my slides there, it was just about what the integration network looked like.
Yes.
Okay. So here we have the individual, the other two circuit groups, the knowing and the centering circuit. So this is what it says. The knowing circuit, as you notice. I'm screen sharing. Right?
Yes, I can see it.
See it. So you can see it goes straight down the middle, right? Yep. It comes 60 through the 3, through the 14, the 2, the 1, 8, 23, 43, 24, 61. Whew, I feel like
Look at that.
I feel like I just said the alphabet backwards.
That's what it feels like. There was no hesitation there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That intuition candle, it's working.
That's true. But, I think we have spent some time looking at that through line up through the middle of the chart before, of like, the mutation down here starting with that pulse in the 60, which has that the limitation, what is the past that wants to be brought forward to the future, when is the time right, direction of the self, all these themes there in that through line right up the middle. It's like it's the easiest thing to see when you look at a chart. If you look, first thing a lot of times I look at is where their gates are falling, and as we discussed, your husband has a lot of those. But then, so this is, if you see where it starts up here in the 61, we know that channel, the 6124, those head gates, that middle channel is knowingness. It's just not knowing how you know what you know. You just know what you know. And no matter how much you want to figure it out, have the facts to back it up, have the history of the experience to inform your knowingness,
you just can't.
Yeah. It's just there. And that's why they call it the knowing circuit, because it's very much informed on this individual's ability to just know what they know. But you can see how it comes down through that through line, obviously. So we know where it's coming from. And then also it's got the intuition there in the 57. So people with that circuitry are going to have a lot of that knowingness, that heightened intuition. I will say that as far as the individuality that I have, a lot of it is in that knowing circuit.
But
so as you know, I haven't, I don't know that I've talked much of it here. I think I have. I talk about myself all the time. But as you know,
don't talk about my mom like that.
I've been talking about how I have been uncovering, developing, whatever you want to call it, my intuition and my intuitive gifts and trusting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as I was putting this together about individual circuitry, it's so obvious some things you can see, but then you just don't see them. And when I think about how much of these gates of mine are in that knowing circuit, well, it's obvious that I would have a certain knowingness about me, and I do. And it happens quite naturally. And most of the time I doubt it. It's kind of just running in the background all the time
I mean, it can feel like you're making things up.
Totally feels like it. But I do have complete channels there. I have the 14-2 and I have the 43-23, and then other ones in between. I have just gates, but those are kind of the stronger flow of that circuitry for me is responding to that sacral energy of what's right for me, whether or not I pay attention to it. Knowing what that feels like, which is what I'm experiencing lately, is like, oh, this is what it feels like. It's very energizing and this is the way I want to go. It feels good. And then also that 43-23 of receiving information, knowingness, and not really understanding what I'm doing a lot of the time when I am talking or speaking. Sounds terrible to say it like that. But I always say it's I get a little flustered in like disagreements or something sometimes, or debates, because I just have a feeling about things. I just know things. I don't always know factual things. My line one wants to have all the facts to back it up. My gate 4 is doubting myself all the time, so there's this head getting in the way all the time, which has been made very clear and evident to me the more I've practice working with this, is that I've just been blocking this the whole time by trying to rationalize and make sense of things, which is what a lot of people do with knowingness circuitry, because it's not the accepted norm in our culture to just trust someone's, what they say.
I mean, not too long ago here, you'd be burned at the stake.
And that still lives in my DNA, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're saying those epigenetics, what do we say, like at least 7 generations or 17 generations, wasn't it?
I don't recall, but
yeah, epigenetics. Yeah, that it's in there. And most women carry that as well. And some men, they don't always come back as women, but it's definitely the through line there. So anyways, that's the knowing circuit. Do you have any questions about the knowing circuit? Because I feel like I have just talked it to death.
No, I think I'm okay.
Oh, look, there's all the gates of the knowing circuit. There they are. Okay, so
the centering circuit. But it doesn't, I take some issue with this one because it doesn't connect. It doesn't loop. I know most of them probably don't, but to me, they should loop to circuit. But
well, if you look at what this does, though, it does. It's the sacral going to the G center, going to the will center, which, these two used to be in the 7th centered being. These would be together anyhow. But the centering circuit, we were talking about that. It wasn't in the integration network, but it's in the centering circuit. So it is a circuit in the sense there's a motor there, that there's 2 motors actually on either end, because this is a motor and that's a motor. So there is a completion of energy in a way. If you're liking to have something tidy.
But also I can see it. I also can kind of see there's like this imaginary connection between the will center and the sacral, because the will center is such about material plane, material possessions, which then can give the sacral, in the broad scheme of things, something to respond to.
Right. And if you look at the themes here, the 34 to the 10, we were talking about the love of self and self-love, that's obviously highly individual energy there in that gate alone, but it's giving power to the self's direction of what's correct. But then also this connection here to the will center between that 25-51 is also, so the 25 is the love of spirit. The 51 is that gate of shock, initiation. And so it's also connecting, the way I see it, as the individual connecting with that energy of centering, in the sense that the individual centered in their own power, but also I feel like connected to almost a higher power, in the sense that, this is what I'm trying to get at. That connection between the 25 and the 51 is the will center, which is resources and material and all you said, right? Which that's what it's concerned with. But the fact that it connects to the part of the G center that's connected to the spirit and the higher self. And so it's like, yes, we're here in this body, but we're also connected to something bigger than ourselves, is what gives us really our power and our
Centering.
direction. Yeah, our sense of direction kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
So, okay. Oh, one last thing I want to touch on here about individual circuitry is, I kind of started to talk about it, but people with a lot of individual circuitry tend to feel like they just don't fit in. And they don't. They're not really meant to.
Okay.
Well, they don't fit as easily into society. Think about the first analogy with Tom and Bob, right? Tom was the individual, right? Okay. He didn't fit in. He didn't feel like he fit in, and he wasn't too bothered with not fitting in. A lot of us depends on the combination of circuitry you have, because we're all going to have a mix of all these circuitry. Your husband's trying to get away with just individual circuitry, but he didn't. He has a mix too. We tend to all have a little bit of a mix. And so there can be, this can be one of those conundrums in the chart where you have this internal
friction.
What's the word? Friction, dissonance, something like that, where there's parts of you that feel one way and another. Because I do have a lot of individuality, but because I have this tribal circuitry, I only have one channel, but the gates in that channel I have a couple times. I have it on both sides of my chart. So I do have this very tribal feeling at times, my family, and I'm a line 4. It's like that definitely informs and motivates a lot of what I do. And it has always been this push-pull between my need to be alone and wanting to be alone, like individual circuitry does, and wanting to be with people and those that I care about. Finding that balance, which is also that balance in the 4-1 of the 4 and the 1, spending time alone, spending time with your community. And so the individual is not designed to fit into society. And as such, a lot of times society, the collective, they don't really trust the individual differentiation. I mean, just look at our society as a large, right? As a collective. Individual voices up until now have not been really valued and accepted. And a lot of times the individual, they go through their process, they go through their the mutation, the transformation, and it's only obviously afterwards that the collective is going to catch up and be less suspicious of the individual, and they see them less as a threat, because the collective doesn't really want to change. They like things it's society structured, a lot of these things. So they don't want to change. So they don't like individuals fucking around with things. And of course, tribes, they're very tribal. They don't like individuals either, because they might fuck with their things too. To put it loosely. And so if you look at your own chart, if you were to, look at where the gates fall in your chart, and you find that you do have a lot of individual circuitry, or even a little bit of it, it can be impacting how you've been experiencing your life. And if there is someone out there who has always felt kind of on the outs, or didn't fit in, trying to fit in.
Didn't care about the rest.
Yeah. Well, there are people that care, say you cared. Well, it could be a relief to be like, oh, well, I'm not really designed to fit in that sense. I am designed to honor my own individuality. And as we move through these next several years, even beyond, I mean, they talk about the big mutation coming in 2027. We're moving into an era, obviously, where the individual is incredibly more valued. And I mean, that's why we're doing this whole freaking human design work, and the podcast is, and that's what I really enjoy showing people is your individuality is what makes you unique. Your wiring is, this is a gift to the rest of the world. And that's what individual circuitry exemplifies is it's needed. I mean, it's all needed, but this is the start of the mutation. What?
Yeah.
No. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So individual circuitry is not meant to be as easily influenced. It is the one that influences. It carries a lot of the gates that have they call gates of deafness, of not listening, not hearing, because they're not designed to be influenced by others. And so that's very much in this circuitry as well. So, because I mean, if you're taking all the input of everybody else, and putting that above what you know for yourself, and you're not creating anything new. You're just creating different versions of what everybody else has already done. So, anyways, that's the individual circuit. So now I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, Haley. You know what that means then?
Incarnation cross of the week.
There we go. And today we have the incarnation cross is the left angle cross of dedication.
Left angle cross. So it's a 5 or a 6 line.
It is the personality. Sun is in gate 23, assimilation. Personality Earth is in 43, insight. So what does that tell you about this person, first of all? Kind of circuitry they got going on there, Haley? 4323.
Individual?
Yeah, I wouldn't have brought it up. And then on the design side, they have the sun in gate 30, which is recognition of feeling. I like to call it gate of passion. And then gate 29 in the design earth, which is saying yes. 29 is saying yes, but it's also gate of perseverance. It's a sacral gate. Okay, so we've got assimilation, insight, passion, and perseverance, let's say.
Okay. Yeah. See where this goes.
We'll see where it goes. All right. Leading off with gate 23. So you have, if you were born under this cross, the left angle cross of dedication, first of all, you're going to have a transpersonal destiny. Your life purpose is going to involve others for sure. But you have a significant role in imparting knowledge and understanding similar to that of a dedicated teacher. You find fulfillment in repeatedly explaining concepts and helping others improve their communication skills. Your unwavering devotion and passion make you a leader, an educator, and an inspiration. You introduce fresh ideas, insights, and perspectives, challenging commonly accepted beliefs and encouraging the re-evaluation of outdated notions. By sharing your knowledge, you facilitate transformation and create new possibilities. Your aim is to reshape perceptions of what can be achieved and act as a catalyst for change. Embrace your role as a change catalyst, using your unique combination of dedication, commitment, and passion to inspire positive transformations in yourself and those you encounter. In doing so, you contribute to a more enlightened and empowered world.
Oh, I love it.
There you go.
They're so good. They're so good.
And that is that for today. So we'll regroup. We will come back again with more talk about the circuitry. We're going to dig in probably next time to tribal circuitry.
Yes.
And then some collective circuitry.
Makes sense.
Yeah, maybe, never mind. I'm not going to say it this time. I'm not going to say it.
What were you going to say? Maybe that makes sense.
No, I was going to say maybe somebody will find it useful. That's my weird individuality going, what does anybody care what I have to say? Who fucking cares? Don't know if it works, don't know if it belongs, but it's just there. I had to do it. I had to say it. I had to get it out there. So
doing your thing.
Hopefully everybody likes it. So anyways, my dear, I will see you next time. And until then, thank you for being here, Haley. Thank you to everybody else for listening. And we'll catch you in the next episode. So bye for now.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.